growth should be predictable. Whether this is your personal life or your business or your side hustle, your growth should be predictable. And the way to make it predictable, not a gamble, is by focusing on foundation and building systems to ensure that the foundation is there.
Reach for growth, reach for more. Performance marketing hardcore. Tune in, listen, hear the roar. Reach for growth.
Hello and welcome to Reach for Growth. This is another episode, and for this episode we are going to have a little bit different concept. So I'm so happy to have here with me Sanita. Sanita, welcome to the show.
Thank you, and I'm very happy to be here. Welcome everyone, and thank you for having me here. So I'm executive leadership coach, and the reason I'm actually here because in October, back in last year, I was in exchange roles where I was the guest. And then after the podcast, I said to Gamal, why don't we do one once you reach some certain milestone where I will interview you so we can reveal to audience all the secrets of your success. And that's what we're going to be doing today.
Yeah, exactly. So hopefully Sanita will going to ask me easy questions.
So this, I think, is a bit special episode. And I don't know how many episodes you have had already.
I guess this is my 21 episode.
21st. Okay, great. So after 20 episodes, what's the main message you would like to share with the audience?
That's a good question. So 21 episodes. So I'll tell you first my goal. So my goal with this podcast is to reach 100 episodes. I don't care about the number of subscribers. I don't care about the number of followers. What I care about is to have 100 episodes in. And if you ask me like why 100 episodes, basically I want to show exactly everyone that growth has to be predictable. It's not a gamble. You cannot just create just one thing and hope it's going to reach or to be viral. And now, through all my journey, I was always obsessed by building a very strong foundation before going to the next step.
Okay. And so from all the episodes, 20 episodes, it's a long time. I think you started around September, October?
August. August. So it's 5 months now.
5 months. So what are some of the key learnings about running a podcast?
It's a lot of work. So running a podcast for me, like when I started, actually it took me 2 years in planning to make the podcast ready. I tried to take as much time in order to plan everything. Like I'm going the studio, the cost, the concept, the brand guideline, everything. But even with that, it's still a lot of work. And people underestimate the amount of work needed and just to post one video online. And I was just talking with you before the episode here. We're talking about how there is a topic, only one topic called the SEO for YouTube episode, and how it's by itself, it's a full-time job.
Yes.
You can hire just someone to do all of this. So running a podcast is require a lot of effort and focused effort. And the best way I like to think about it, you should think about it as workflows, like divide the process from choosing to have a guest, the topic of the episode, sharing the segments with the guest, to actually have the episode, edit the episode, and then post it online, which platform, and all of that, to have it in a way that is based on workflow, and to try to get some help. Try to get people to help you as fast as you can, because this will help you to save a lot of time. Now, the second thing I can share about running a podcast that I had, or actually I can say something else. So I had 2 reasons why I started the podcast. So there is a selfish reason and there is non-selfish reason.
Okay, what's the selfish one?
So the selfish one, that as an introvert, I find it very hard to meet new people. And I really hate small talks. And I'd rather meet someone, have a discussion with him, a deep conversation with him for maybe 30 minutes, 1 hour. This is, for me, it's much better than just go meet up in this event and to try to meet new people, and all of that doesn't work for me. So this is a selfish reason.
So the networking.
Yeah, like me to get to meet interesting people that I can have a conversation with. That's it. The unselfish reason is actually to give back for people who just starting, or anyone who might be interested in a topic that I'm talking about, or one of the guests is talking about, for them to see what it exactly means. People maybe have the wrong idea about titles. Maybe they confuse about if you know how to do something doesn't mean that you have mastery in doing things, and this doesn't mean also that you can have a long-lasting career doing it. So, and the best way I find in order to break this down is to meet people who did it and let them share their story. At some point, you will find that it doesn't make sense to you if you are listening and you just focus on the technical things like how to do ABC. But also, it's very important to balance this with an ability to get inspired by people who did it.
That's great. So, I mean, I'm sure there are many people who would love to be where you are. You have a LinkedIn with, I think, over 20,000 followers. You have YouTube channel. The podcast is over 20,000 subscribers. So could you share a little bit from where you started? When did you start? How long it took to get where you are so that, somebody who might be inspired want to do the same could start doing some steps that direction?
For sure, yeah. And thank you. This is so flattering. So I'll tell you. So I started, I'm originally from Egypt, and I'm from a city in the deep south of Egypt called Aswan. So Aswan is in the deep south. There's a lot of pharaoh temples and things, museums, and all of that. During my studies, I had to travel to Cairo because all the universities was there in Cairo, and I had to figure out what I wanted to do with my life. I wanted to be focused in marketing. But as an introverted person, it wasn't easy because marketing back then, it was all about PR, and being especially in Egypt, was all about PR. Digital was not that famous back then. So I was lucky actually and guided to start digital marketing at this moment when it was just starting, so I have a chance to compete. So, and I guess the biggest mistake that I did back then, that I was focused so much on having title or a big title way earlier than I should had in the first place. So after I finished my university, I took like a diploma in digital marketing from the American Chamber in Egypt. Like, it's a very prestigious one. It was expensive and it took me a lot of time to study it. So from a theoretical point, I understood everything when it comes to digital marketing back then, or that what I thought.
Yes.
And after some work, I was able actually to land my first digital marketing manager job after 2 years only from graduation, which was super fast. And I remember back then, I was taking basically double the salary of my colleagues who just graduated. And I felt like this is what success should look like. But I was so full. It was actually the opposite, because you see, like, even though like I had the technical knowledge in terms of theory in my mind, there is a difference between theory and actual doing the work. So I failed on my first manager job. Okay. I lasted only 6 months and I got fired. And even though like I was trying to work 12 hours a day and even like slept in the company for one day where they were launching the website. But honestly speaking, if I were my manager, I was going to fire myself too. Because at some point, like, there is no amount of effort can make up to your lack of skills. Like
experience, right?
Yeah, like, so it was quite devastating for me. Because again, think about it, like, I had this idea that this is what success looks like. And then when all chattered down, I felt like my self-esteem is down.
So you went to fly the rocket and the rocket crashed.
Exactly. And rocket just flied a little bit up, but then it went down massively. So I went again to the job market, start looking. I managed to get another job as a digital marketing manager again. And it was good salary, good title, good company. But deep down, I knew that this is not solving the problem. This is like, or I was trying to ask myself, how can I ensure that what happened cannot happen again in another company?
At least you reflected. That's a sign of a growth mind.
Exactly. Yeah. I guess I was lucky to have it back then. So, and also I got another offer from an agency to join an agency. And the agency was actually less title. It was an executive, less salary, way less salary, and it was super demanding. And I decided to go with the agency.
How come? What was the thought process behind? Because I could imagine that not many would make that decision.
I'll tell you. So the idea was like, I want to make sure that after what the experience that I had with my first company or my second company, the one that fired me, I need to ensure that this will never happen again. And for that, I need to build foundation when it comes to technical skills. And in order to do this, I need an experience for maybe 1 or 2 years that is going to push me to the limit so I can acquire, so I will not be in this situation again that I lack the technical skills. And I joined the agency, and man, it was really hard, really hard. Like the amount of stress, pressure, it was like continuously 12 hours a day. And even doing so much work, and you have this feeling that you're not succeeding, because the way that they measure your performance based on different things, based on how are you acquiring clients for the agency, and if not, then you are not doing good, and then are you retaining clients with the agency, and if not, you're not doing a good job. But they were so patient, I have to thank them, that they didn't fire me as well. But it took me enough time to learn the foundation. And yeah, and honestly, like I even right now, I keep reflecting on the same thing, that titles doesn't mean anything. Titles is my way or your way to prove to prove something to someone else that maybe not necessarily true. So I'd rather to work on a place that I can actually help me gain skills that I believe it's important in the future, or actually to express myself in a way that I feel more comfortable about, and I don't care at all about the title. It doesn't mean anything. Like, we're trying to impress people out there about titles, about achievements, while in deep down we feel miserable, or we feel that we are fraud, just showing up, doing a work. Yeah.
I think it's the difference between formal authority versus earned authority. And what you do with all the preparation work that you've done, you earned your authority because you gain credibility, you gain competence, you gain the skills that you need to then actually build to the real authority.
No, 100%. And I remember, like, especially when, like, I was super young and, let's say, naive in a way that I remember I used to feel a lot of pain because the idea that I used to be a manager and people used to respect me in a work environment, and now I am an executive and everyone is bossing me around. And it always, like, gave you this kind of self-doubt that am I moving on the right path? Have the decision I made was the correct decision? But yeah, man, here is where luck and guidance comes to your life, that keeps you focused on the same way and be consistent till you see the results that you want to see.
So what happened? So from the agency to UAE and
No,
LinkedIn and all of that?
No, from the agency, I joined then Jumia, which is like the best experience I had in my life. I learned big part of what I know right now from Jumia. So Jumia, for those who doesn't know, it's like an African e-commerce. It's like the African Amazon.
Okay.
Spotted. So it's a marketplace, e-commerce, operating over 14 different African countries. And I was responsible for Jumia Uganda, Jumia South Africa, and Zando South Africa, while operating from Egypt, traveling to those markets on the time of tier 1 campaign or big campaigns. So yeah, my time in Jumia I really liked so much because the way that they were doing business, it was so advanced. Up till now, here in the MENA region, it was so advanced in terms of the technology, the mindset, and everything. And yeah, and I really enjoyed my time there.
Okay, and that was still in Egypt, or?
It was still in Egypt, yeah.
Okay, so how did you get to UAE? Or when did you get to UAE?
So I'll tell you. So this is, I was even telling my friends the story for the first time. So I was so happy in Jumia, and I decided to leave because I felt that there is a glass ceiling preventing me from growth just because I am sitting in Egypt.
Okay.
So I remember I had this peer review or performance review with my manager, and I shared with her my intention that I want to be like the head of growth. And just to give you context, a head of growth in Jumia back in the time, people were just graduated from universities in France or from Europe, and they would just have 6 months internship within the company, and then they have been given the title of head of growth. So for me, I was like, more like I'm overqualified for this. I have more experience, technical knowledge, and all of that. But yeah, so I told her this, and she didn't reply. She just laughed. she just laughed very hard. I don't know what was so funny back then. Um, and and she kept talking about my evaluation and how I'm doing a good job and all of that, and she disregarded completely what I asked. And this was like the kind of traumatizing in a way that I forget about it. Like the encounter itself, I forget about it. And I kept focusing on improving myself better, adding more value to the company. And here comes LinkedIn. This was back in 2019. I was active on LinkedIn since 2019 because I know that for me to grow, I need to be in Dubai. And the easiest way for me to reach out to people was LinkedIn back then. And LinkedIn back then was super easy.
Yeah, not like today.
Like super easy. Like posting anything like gains at least 5,000 impression. At least like minimum, like any idea that you have in mind, a lot of interaction, a lot of engagement. And yeah, and actually it worked. So I got headhunted by a CEO of a startup. She had hunted me through LinkedIn, and I joined, and that's how I came to Dubai.
So I love this story because I think there's so many lessons. So we see many people in companies working hard, having the skills, done the education, probably outperforming some other ones with the titles, but they are not advancing. And the missing thing is visibility and influence, right? And you, I think somehow, I don't know if it's conscious or unconscious or strategic, but you realize that you're missing that visibility, and that's essentially will open you doors towards advancement. And you use LinkedIn as a channel to gain external visibility. You could have potentially done internally some also strategic moves to gain that visibility, but that essentially open your doors. So I love that because I work with so many leaders who are getting stuck in that technical thing, and they don't realize that they need to get out there and really find their voice and find their take the action to be more visible.
And I guess there is a big, deep meaning about that, because I keep always ask myself why, in my mind, like why people keep obsessing about being in a company for 10, 15 years. Like my thoughts are, if you are really that good, you shouldn't care at all about the company. The company should worry about keeping you. And maybe also I have this need of freedom that I'm going to be so good so I can actually not worry if I've decided to leave a company tomorrow or the day after, etc. So yeah, I guess a lot of leaders, they just limit themselves because they have a negative self-image about themselves and about the value that they're bringing, that they do not imagine a future that they can grow without the company. And I believe this is so wrong.
That is a good realization. So question for you, in that point when you started on LinkedIn, because there are many people who know theoretically that they should be visible on LinkedIn or any other social media, but something is holding them back. They just cannot start. So what, did you have any of those feelings at all? Or?
And I guess yes, of course I had, but the thing is that LinkedIn to try to be a creator, not an influencer, a creator who provide real value to people and honestly not caring about being famous. The objective of being a creator versus an influencer, that as a creator, your goal is not to have millions of views. Your goal is actually to make maybe a difference to just one person, and you'll be happy and fulfilled with it. And if you have this in mind, then you would like to think about your target audience and what kind of value can you give them, and for free and in a way that you're giving back to the community or to the society. And once you have this in mind, it will be much simpler. Like you are not competing with the big influencers on the platform. You just try to give back some of what you've learned to help people improve. If it managed to get recognized by 10 people, that's fine. If it managed to get 0 engagement, 0 likes, 0 impression, it's fine too, because this is not your goal. Don't get distracted with the metrics, the KPIs, the everything that, or to try to get signals from other platforms to tell you that you're doing good. You have to listen to the voice in your mind and to trust it and just try to do as you believe is good for you.
So now let's come to the YouTube. And, I've been following your journey. And of course, I'm very impressed with how you have grown your channel in very quick, very short time to large audience growth. And I'm confident there are many people who would love to do the same. So what are some of your tips and secrets you can share?
So when it comes to tips, I would say always think about the SEO for YouTube, for your YouTube channel. This is very important. And just to make it simple, think about what's one word that when people are going to search for it, they will find your episode, and your episode will add value to them. And once you know this one word, you try to optimize everything on your video about it, like the headline, the description, the tags, and everything. But this is in terms of facts. But I would tell you this, that my journey with the podcast, I kept planning about the podcast for 2 years. And I tried to mitigate all the risks, or at least to have clarity for 2 years. And if you ask me, I would say I should have started way earlier than this. But again, there was a lot of self-doubt. How I'm going to talk? Am I okay with the way I sound? Am I okay with the way I look? Am I okay with the mission or the message that I want to deliver? And yes, I would say if you have an idea in mind and want to create a podcast, just do it as fast as you can, just to try. Don't get stuck with the planning phase. Try to do it maybe much quicker, 1 to 3 months, and you should be starting by then. And once you start, and I guess one of the things that I was always good with, that I always put my head first to try to force myself to keep going. So once I started the podcast, I thought that I planned everything, but there was a lot of things that I didn't see. For example, I didn't consider about the SEO for YouTube. I didn't consider about the podcast hosting platforms. Oh my God, like the level of research that I had to do in order to figure out which podcast hosting platform should I choose. And what is a podcast hosting platform anyway? Like,
what is it?
So think about it this way. It's a place that you're going to put your podcast in, and from there it's going to be sent to all podcast platforms such as Apple, Spotify, YouTube podcast, all the other podcasts. So it's a kind of technicality in a way that content distribution and all of that, and there is differences, and there is paid plan, and there is monetization, like big topics to decide which platform you go with. But like I didn't think about this back when I was planning for the 2 years. I didn't see it even. So, but then once I started, I had a different view of what the podcast is. It wasn't this as we're having right now. It was more about what I envisioned back then. It was all about technical performance marketing and growth. But unfortunately, it didn't happen. And why it didn't happen? Because it was very hard to find guests that can speak confidently in front of a camera and be okay if it's not perfect. It doesn't mean anything. And yeah, so I'd like, let me try to change the concept a little bit. Instead of focusing on just performance marketing and growth, it's all about growth, right? So anything that is around growth, whether it's technical, performance marketing, e-commerce, or even personal development, I'm really interested to have a conversation about. And that's why I'm going to reach out to those guests. And then things start shifting around. And this is also one of the main reasons why that my channel got some traction very fast, because once I start expanding my guests and their topics, it becomes much more interesting to a wider group of people.
Right.
But again, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if you have 10,000, 20,000, 500. At the end of the day, whatever you should produce should give meaning to you first, and you should be happy with, and everything else will be on the right place by itself.
So I think that's the big topic in marketing that you just touched upon, going niche or going wide. And there are books written about positioning and find your niche and own your voice, and there are influencers who tell you don't own any niche, and there are influencers who just go full on niche, right? So that there's big debate, as you know, I'm sure. So what's your view after having trialed and errored and kind of done different things?
I'll tell you, I guess we are so obsessed by trying to find answers out there, and me included. I'm not trying to say I'm not, me included. Like whatever I face a question, I always try to find an answer out there. But there is a lot of topics, whether in marketing or whether in life in general, that an answer out there doesn't make it your answer. Maybe your answer is going to be totally different than that. Maybe your answer that you're going to be broad, then niche, then broad again, that whoever knows what's going to be, it doesn't matter. But think about it like you should have a little bit of an agency, let's put it this way, an agency with yourself to say, I understand that this influencer is saying this or is asking me or advising me to go narrow or niche, and I'm going to try. But if it didn't work, I have to pivot. And from there, you'll be able to find your own answer that's going to make sense to you and to your target audience.
Yeah, I love that message. I always talk to my clients that just listen to yourself, listen to your intuition, and experiment. I'm very big fan of experimentation, as you know. So you just try different things. It doesn't work, it's okay.
Mm-hmm.
But some people get stuck in it, right? Because they would see experimentation as a failure. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
I experimented, I failed, so I'm not good enough. But maybe it was a wrong product, maybe it was a wrong audience, maybe it was a wrong timing.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know, right? You just experiment and keep going and changing and twisting until you find that one sweet spot that works for you.
Yeah, 100%. And I guess very important, a lot of people overlooking this or maybe disagreeing with it, you have to be kind with yourself along the way. I'll tell you, I had a conversation here, it's not live yet, with Lara Acosta. And I was asking her mainly about how can we look into well-being while producing content online, because it's a lot of work and sometimes it's hard. So how can we find a pace that we are comfortable with? And I shared with her my story that I produce content on LinkedIn non-stop every day, single day for 60 or 90 days, but then I stopped. I had burned out and I had to stop. And her answer was quite interesting. Like she had and an entrepreneur. Her answer was an entrepreneur. If he's serious about his business, he will never have burnout, because that's his A game and all of that. And I was like, yeah, it makes sense. But life is much more complicated than that.
So how do you practically do that, right?
Yeah, and again, if you have to understand that in your life, if you are 20 years old, that you're going to have a different life than if you are 25 or 30 or 35 or 40 years old. Your life become more complicated because you have a lot of commitments. You have commitment toward your full-time job, you have commitment toward your family, and a lot of other commitments as well. So it's very important if you're going to produce or you care about creating content online that you have to find a balance or to find a place that you can be kind to yourself, and always try to remind yourself about yesterday. Like, look, yesterday I had 0 people following me, or I had 0 video out there. Now I have 20 video. Very good. This will help you, this perspective will help you to overlook the small mistakes that you see or the things that you did and you're not happy with and all of that. So always try to remind yourself with where you started. This will help you a lot to be kind to yourself.
I love this one. And I actually I do that myself, but I also always recommend to my clients on Sunday night, sit down and list all your achievements that you achieved the previous week, and then 3 key priorities for next week. It's already going to make you feel so much better. And then if you expand it to like 3 to 6 months and you can see the massive progress you have made, I think all these self-doubts and kind of rushing and trying to do everything at once start to diminish at least a little bit. I mean, with people who are high achievers yourself and, in general with growth mindset, we always want to do more and more, and we have many ideas and there's never enough time to do them all. But then the key is to focus what's really important, what's going to give me the biggest satisfaction, biggest return possibly, and then focus on doing that.
Yeah, true. And I guess we are also like people with growth mindset, that they have ambition and they are high achiever. They are so perfectionist, me included. And if you're going to create content online, whether it's on LinkedIn or on YouTube, you have to understand that perfectionist is your enemy. It's going to prevent you from creating a lot of content. And regardless of all your effort, your content is not going to be perfect, and it's okay. It can be better with time, but there will always be something else to do in order to improve it, to make it better. So I had a guest last week actually, and she were considering to have her podcast, and she was obsessing about the background color of the floor in her back, because her brand colors are more light, not dark, and all of that. I was like, I understand exactly where you're coming from, but no one cares. Only you care about your brand image. At the end of the day, if you're going to think about your personal brand, I guess the most important part is how your personal brand make your ideal client or ideal customer feel. People will always remember how you made them feel, not what you say to them or what you show to them. So this is very important. And in order to influence a feeling on someone, you have to do it in a consistent way. It cannot just be one time off or one season and all of that.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think the whole personal branding market is shifting as well. It used to be about authority, the right words, the right colors, the right images, the right stamps or whatever. I think now it's about how you're authentic, what are your values, who do you represent or how do you represent yourself, what do you stand for, what are your beliefs. So I think the entire market, I actually don't like to use the word personal branding at all. I use the word leadership brand because I think that's much more fitting to where we are moving, and so I really love what you're saying. It's not yes, of course we do like aesthetics, we like colors and the right logos and whatnot, but it's so much more about the content, about the depth, about the message, about who you stand for, who you are.
Yeah, and people will understand if you have a real why you're doing this, and rather if you just want to do it for just to be famous and just to be well known for this, because I can tell you like a shortcut to tell you know exactly if the person that you're talking to is a person of authority on what he's saying or not. Look at consistency on his record. So if it's it doesn't matter the platform, doesn't matter if it's YouTube or you try to hire a professional to help you with any kind of service. If he is not delivering it exactly to clients like you consistently, then I will start asking more questions, and I will start to have more doubts about it.
I mean, for me, it's also credibility. So one is the consistency, I agree, but also have they done that?
Exactly, yeah.
Somebody talking about growth marketing, have they worked in a growth marketing?
Yeah.
Somebody talking about leadership branding, have they actually been a leader before? And so forth. So dig a little bit deeper. Or education, what you mentioned, you studied for 2 years to learn all the technicalities. That's a long time to study something and to become expert. Somebody might take a 1 month course. It probably will not be the same level of knowledge as well.
And it's very interesting if you compared about what it takes to be a master now versus in the past. Like, it doesn't matter what is the topic. Like, for example, if I want to be master of I don't know, like any kind of profession back in the 1900 or the 1800, at least I need 10 years, 15 years just to be a specialist on one field. Now people just take one course or spend 6 months, and they don't even say that they can help you achieve this. They say they are masters and experts, and they build their whole personal brand about how they are dominating this niche. And while I understand where they're coming from, I would suggest to take a step back from this approach, because it's actually doing more damage to the person who's promoting it first. Because when you set unrealistic expectations about your promises, it's going to hurt you first, not the customer, not the client, and all of that. Because once you realize that you are not this person, you're going to have a hit into your level of confidence, and it will require a lot of time to get it back.
Yeah, and so in a way you will be under delivering and over promising. I think the best strategy is always under promise and over deliver, walk your talk. These are some of the kind of motives that I love.
And honestly, it's scary because I experienced it when I got fired for the first time. Like the self-image that you will be fighting with is the self-image of being a fraud, and this is so hurtful to you. I'd rather work. I don't care about the title, I don't care about the salary, but at least I need to have a feeling that I'm making a difference and I'm adding value. I'm useful. But if you are just trying to go fast to achieve a certain title, or to build a personal brand about being an expert on a topic that you don't really know the full details of, or you just did it once and it worked and you think that this is mastery. No, like mastery is doing one thing 1,000 times and doing ton of mistakes, and you learned all the mistakes around it. Then you can be a master who can guide people to avoid those mistakes.
No, I think there's also a bit of shift. Obviously, there are people who always care about titles, and then there are people who are looking more freedom. They are looking for perhaps balance, or they really feel they can make an impact. So the title is becoming less relevant. They are looking more for kind of influence, but real influence in the market, right? What's your take on this?
Yeah, I guess I agree with you, but I believe also like a lot of people that the root cause of the problem is still there. Yeah, the titles, they are not following titles, but they try to build a very big personal brand about things that they don't really understand the whole depth of it, just in terms of pure years of experience. And I understand nowadays it doesn't mean to be a master in something that you need to spend a whole lifetime learning it, but at least you need to have some reps. But you cannot just be graduated 2-3 years and then you start calling yourself an expert. Regardless of what you did during those 3-4 years, it's not enough. And based on research, actually, like Malcolm Gladwell said, like 10,000 hours. It was the amount of time needed in order to be a master of a certain topic based on study, research that has been done. And so people, you can say, yeah, the titles, they are not following titles, but they're creating a big self-image about themselves so early that actually hurting themselves first. And it will make more sense and will be more efficient and will reach them even further and deeper if they adopted a more realistic self-image or a personal brand that can actually provide an answer to their promises that they can deliver without over-promising, and this will take them further within their career or within their personal brand or within their business.
So go slow to go fast.
Exactly, yeah.
Sounds like that's what you did with your podcast, right? You took a long time to prepare and then you accelerated very quickly.
True. And for me, like the podcast, despite all the hard work, it was so fulfilling. So all the work that I'll tell you, like from August till December, I didn't take any weekend. 0. Every weekend for me is a full day of work. And it was the reason I got burned out, to be honest. But like I was so fulfilled doing it. And I actually, I had a meaning. I'm meeting interesting people. I have a deeper conversation with them and actually giving this back to the people. So actually I can help one person get better on something. So I can at least save him maybe 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years. This is, for me, this is so meaningful. So for me, it was like more rewarding work. It's not as if demanding work.
But we can get burned out also doing fulfilling work. And that is really true about entrepreneurs or solopreneurs, that they have to be very careful, because people have this idea that you get burned out because you're meaningless work or you're bored. And yes, you can, but you can also get burned out doing fulfilling work. So the kind of balance and taking breaks and being really intentional about the actions is critical.
Yeah, very important. Very important. 100%.
So what, looking back now for the last, 5-6 months, what are the 3 achievements you're really proud of?
That's a good question. Okay. I always find it very hard, at least, to come up with achievements and all of that. But let me try. Okay, so number 1, that actually I have 20 episodes. This was a big milestone that I put it toward myself, to have 20 episodes out there. And I guess by the time that this episode is going to be live, it will be more than 20 episodes out there. So this is really good. Also, it was the 20,000 subscriber. I added it as a more like a gamification for me. Like if I achieve this, that this is a big milestone that I should celebrate, and I achieved it. So this is good. And honestly, like when I go and meet new people and all of that, they always hear about the podcast, even if they are not subscriber, even if they didn't watch any episode. But they know about it, and also it's a very good way to help me with the small talk. So at least now we know what we talk about in the small talk, which is a big win for me. Yeah, but like there is a lot of things that happened very well for me when it comes to the podcast. I'm really grateful for. And yeah.
So how are you celebrating? Because we should celebrate.
That's a good question.
Are you celebrating?
No, I don't think so. Like, I guess this is the things that I can work on, make it better, because celebration for me is just a good thought. That's the idea, the thought that I did something good, maybe for 5 seconds or so, and that's it. But like, yeah, definitely I have to work on find more intentional ways to celebrate the achievements or actually the commitments that I'm putting here.
But that's an important one, and I see that in my clients because all the clients I work are senior leaders, high achievers, and we always set these super high goals and do these crazy things, and then we achieve them, and the next one, like we barely have finished, and the next one already. But
Yeah.
it's really important to take a moment and pause and to actually celebrate and just acknowledge.
No, true. I understand. I totally get it. But also, yeah, there is a lot of beliefs sometimes that go against it, and I'm starting to realize them more now. That is the idea is like, am I deserving to celebrate? Is it enough? Is it good enough? It's not good enough, and all of that. But at least now I'm aware. And it doesn't, and I guess celebration can take different forms, but it's very important that the idea that, yes, I deserve to celebrate, I did something good, and you start getting familiar with the idea. At least this is for me, at least myself, it's
a breakthrough already.
breakthrough, 100%. Yeah.
I call these hidden forces, those are the hidden forces that hold us back. But like when you mentioned, when you become aware, that's already the first step to break through, right?
Yeah.
To different direction. So what's coming next for this year? What are your plans?
So I'll tell you. So for me, 2025, as I was thinking about it, it will be like a year that is all about freedom and hope. And
Freedom and
hope.
hope. I love that.
Yeah, freedom and hope. And freedom is something that is within us all, but I will just try to express it more. And hope that goes against fear. A lot of the time that we think about things that we fear, and we think about them that they are so big, that it's going to demolish us, it's going to end us all. But in reality, it's not that big. Like, hey, you can just quit your job. It's not the end of the world. You can start your own business and fail. Yeah, you're still here. Yeah, like you're still here. You still have ways to survive. But I guess what is important and what that I'm trying to have in 2025 is to find a way to express myself beyond the fear. By actually, I will go the way of fear just to prove to myself it's not as bad as I expected. And in terms of actual things, yeah, I'm working right now on my course. So I'm going to launch a course about performance marketing and growth marketing for leadership. So basically, if you are a leader and you have your own business or you have a team and you want to manage the performance marketing part, but you don't have like 6 or 8 months to learn the basics of Google Ads, Facebook ads, and all of that, it will be a course 2-3 hours. So you can take you through how can you manage performance marketing and growth marketing for your business in an efficient way. So yeah, this should be live by April time.
That's exciting.
Yeah, I'm excited for it.
And I love what you said about fear, because people think that you don't have fear. The truth is you always have fear. It's just fear and taking action are like opposite scales. And those who succeed are managing to balance both. So they have fear and they do it anyway.
Yeah, true. I guess there is always be fear. There is always, like, trust me, like one of the things that helped me also more to try to accelerate the going live with the podcast, that I had a public speaking event within my company, within my current company. And it was a lot of people. And I started talking and I kept talking about technical things. And I see their faces looks like this. And I totally freeze. I couldn't finish my sentence. I felt totally disconnected, because usually when I talk with people, even with technical things that are at the company and all of that, there is a level of engagement. There was zero engagement. And it was so bad. Like, the experience itself for me, it was so painful that I would like say, I have a problem when it comes to public speaking and I have to fix it. And the way to fix it is actually by exposure. I need more exposure. And here came the idea of the podcast. And even if you, the first 1 or 2 or 3 episodes, it was so hard, like really hard. Like kind of, I'm having nightmare before the day of recording, that hard. Just to go there and just speak to a friend even. He was my friend. I know him very well. But it's all about accepting ourselves, accepting the way that we sound, accepting the way that we look, accepting our accent. We don't have to speak in an American or a British accent, and all of that, and to be okay with our quirks, the different things that we do with our face, with our voice, with all of that. That's what makes us unique.
And I love that you're sharing that, honestly, because I think for someone watching who might, well, I also have a fear. I mean, I think 90% of people have fear of public speaking. I think it's actually the number one fear.
Yes.
After, like, I've read some statistic around it. So most people have that. And, you sharing that you also had it and you were afraid and you had the nightmares and then you did it. And, 6 months later, you have so much success. I think that's extremely inspiring. And we should share more of these stories.
Yeah, true. I wouldn't say that I succeeded yet, but at least I'm consistent with it. I'm getting more familiar with it. And again, my end game here, or why I'm doing the podcast, is basically to give back. So I'm trying to think about it as 1 hour of my week, every week, meet interesting people, connect, and share some insights. It might be able to change someone's life. Maybe not. I at least worth the shot.
Have you had some nice feedback from random people telling you about how the impact that you have had?
Yeah, honestly, yeah. Sometimes I receive a lot of feedback, whether on LinkedIn, people are watching the episode and say they enjoyed it. Even some of the guests, after they speak, because usually they speak with me for the first time, and after this they receive a lot of traction. Other podcasts or other people invite them to speak elsewhere. So the feedback is there, but what I am after is the kind of thing that can actually, only one person, to have his life totally changed. If I can save him or her 3 to 5 years, instead of going onto this direction, to go totally on this direction, I'll be completely satisfied.
So is that your purpose? Is that how you would define your purpose? Or?
Yeah, to an extent. When it comes to the podcast, this is mainly my purpose. It's to be able to produce work that when one day I stand in front of God, it will be something that it can do me good. It can feel like I helped change someone's life, and it will help me during this day. So despite all the publicity or the personal brand and all of this, at the end of the day, we have to connect with our bigger why we are doing what we're doing. And for me, it's all about the guidance part, that if I can just guide or help one person change their life a little bit, not something crazy, I'll be really happy. It brings me a lot of happiness and joy.
And where does the growth marketing come in? Because that's your expertise, right? That's your field.
Actually, I've been thinking recently that what I do is very much reflecting who I am in a way that, when you think about performance marketing, so it's marketing.
Yeah.
But on the same time, it's all about numbers. It's so geeky. You look at numbers, you talk a lot of technical things, very close to developing and coding. But still, you take about marketing. You need to understand your target audience. You need to understand human behavior. You need to understand what makes people click on an ad or see an ad, and what kind of emotion comes with it. So, to an extent, I find this very close to who I am. I'm deep down, I'm a nerd. I find it very satisfying to go through with data, to go and have a very deep analysis about current performance and all of that. And honestly, there was a moment that actually I decided to specialize on what I'm specialized in, which is mainly performance marketing, which is when I realized how much brands they can grow in an ethical way. And I define unethical not in terms of bad practice, but in terms of burning money, just to give this idea that we have grown X, Y, Z. And for me, it was no, I'm going to specialize in this, and I will try to help brand grow in an ethical way in terms of everything when it comes to how they spend their money, how they look into their business. It has to be a healthy way, not only focusing on top line, but also
sustainable. Yes. I would use the word probably sustainable.
Also looking on profit and all of that. Because this happened after the realization that a company they call it a unicorn, while it's actually loss-making for the past 7, 8, 9 years.
Because the revenue would be the unicorn level, but the cost would obviously...
Because when it comes to tech companies or e-commerce, they focus a lot about customer acquisition, how many customers you have, first-time customers and first-time users and all of that. But this doesn't mean that you have a sustainable business. And why this is important, because people may be not noticing it, but there was a mindset shift that between sustainable growth and hyper growth. And the idea was companies can actually go in hyper growth for 6, 7, 8 years, and then they will turn profitable in one magical year, and everything will turn around. But I don't agree with it. Yeah, it works for some companies, such as Twitter, for example, and all of that. But this kind of mindset is basically pushing people to take shortcuts, and the outcome of this that you will see a lot of then those companies, they will say like, okay, we need to fire those our employees right now because we are not profitable. So you could foresee all of this and do it right from the first place. Maybe you will not go fast, but you at least you are not going to fire all those people. In fact, you might not hire all of them in the first place. So, and this is not kind of hard decision to think about. This is very simple. This is like kind of +1 or +2, like your action +1. What is the next action after it? What is the second action after it? So it's a very simple logic. But unfortunately, a lot of businesses right now, this is not the way that they operate.
So it's a little contrarian thinking that you're sharing. So how did you come to those conclusions?
Yeah, because during my time in Jumia, like Jumia was one of those companies, like a unicorn, 7 years, doing really good on the surface. But like when I started reading the P&L and the financial reports, actually every year it's a loss making. So it made me asking, okay, how is people keep investing in a company that is loss making? They are not stupid, of course. There is definitely a reason. So the reason was back then that the way that the market was, that's anything around e-commerce, people put money in, and it doesn't matter if the company failed. They actually invest more into a portfolio of e-commerce companies. So it's like the VC or the venture capital, they only aimed for one company to make it, and the rest can fail. It's not an issue for them. And they have a big investment portfolio that they need to manage. And I've seen it, like when I joined, the company was doing really well, hiring a lot of people, and when they start talking about profitability and all of that, they start firing a lot of people as well. And I was like, all of this can be easily prevented if the vision was clear. And it's not rocket science, right? Like if we are investing all this kind of money, whether on ads or on hiring people, and no one in the business is asking about profitability, this is then by design. Like this kind of illusion that gives the idea that we have grown way faster or way better than what reality is. And that's why I like a lot startups, especially like the bootstrapped one, the one that they started and they focus from day one on profitability, and they're very cautious when it comes to hiring, and they're very cautious when it comes to firing, and they try to make it work because in my mind, this is how business should be.
So if you were to start your own business, I don't know if you have thought about it.
Yeah, 100%.
How would you start in terms of...
I'll tell you. So I would start by being a one-man show as much as I can. I will be very cautious when it comes to hiring. I will always look at my costs. I will try to put it under control. And I will always try to build a foundation as long as I can. Like, for example, if I can just provide one service and ensure that this one service is delivered with quality for a big base of customers, I will just ensure to provide this, and I will try always to prevent myself from going faster, to put it this way.
No, makes sense. I think we're coming probably to the end of the
Yeah.
podcast. So is there anything you would love to leave the audience with?
Yeah, I said it like in the beginning, but I can say it again. Like, growth should be predictable. Whether this is your personal life or your business or your side hustle, your growth should be predictable. And the way to make it predictable, not a gamble, is by focusing on foundation and building systems to ensure that the foundation is there. Always try, and I'm trying to do it myself, to overcome the temptation to go faster, to go deeper, to work for longer hours of time. Try to make it as much manageable as you can. This is the way that you can predict your growth.
I think that's a good message to leave everyone with.
Thank you, Sanita. You asked me a lot of good questions. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, thank you. Thank you,
Reach for
everyone.
growth, reach